Good morning. Happy Saturday, week 13 college football. Kelly Stewart at KellyInVegas on all of your social channels. This is WagerTalk's last call. We're going to start off with Art DiCesare from the Westgate SuperBook for a look behind the counter. Then we're going to bring in Yanni the Greek from WagerTalk. Of course, he's going to give us a look behind the, other side of the counter from the sharp perspective. Ralph Michaels is going to join us and give us some TNA and answer all of your college football questions. Then we're going to bring in Adam Trigger last and certainly least, of course, for college basketball. All jokes aside, we're going to have a really lot of fun this Saturday. Let's bring in Art, see what he's got. We know got some sharp action from John Murray early in the week in regards to the Kelly and Murray show. I want to see if that stayed true, Art. I'm going to run down some of these and see if you agree with John.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, we got Indiana, Wake Forest, Rutgers, Auburn, Ole Miss, and Maryland.
I would say all of those are correct. What was the second one?
Wake Forest against Miami.
Yeah, that one's come back a little bit. I would say that's the one that would probably be the bottom. But, Sharps did come in and take 25. But, I mean, if you just look at the 9 a.m. slate, two of our five biggest needs are in that window. You mentioned Ole Miss, which obviously we're going to need Florida, and you mentioned the Indiana game. We're going to need Ohio State. So those are two big early needs for us. And that Ole Miss game is crazy. That thing was 9. They laid 9. They laid 10. They laid 11. We were up to almost 14 today. We were 13.5. It's come back a little bit. You get the board cleaners who want to come in, take 13.5. Maybe they laid 9 early in the week, look for a middle spot. But, man, even with the little bit of a nibble coming back on Florida, we're buried with Ole Miss. And we're buried with Indiana, too. It's unbelievable. That was the thing that obviously we opened 11.5. It got to 13.5. Sharps took 13. They took 12. We got to as low as 10. Now we're back to 10.5. I mean, obviously Ohio State's going to be very popular as far as money line stuff goes. And we actually had a pretty good house player come in and lay a nice five-figure bet on Ohio State for the money line. But all the spread stuff is on Indiana.
When you guys need a favorite, like in that type of scenario where you would say the public and the sharps are pretty much on the same side minus a house player here or there, talk to me about how you guys manage the risk there. Because as you mentioned, you got the board cleaners coming in the 13s, but those are really probably just guys looking for middles.
There's no doubt about it. And a lot of times with that too, Kelly, like when you look at Florida this morning, we were 13.5. You're just going to get guys and girls who are going to come and nibble a nickel, a dime. It's nothing crazy. So sometimes it's really hard to cut into your liability and manage the risk and close the gap. Listen, sometimes you're just going to have a big decision on a game. Obviously this, hey, we want 50-50 and all that. That's just not possible. It happens on maybe 1 or 2 games a week. It just doesn't happen. So we know that most games are going to be a decision. So we're going to be pulling heavy for Florida. That's just the way it is.
Well, I'll take that because I will also be pulling heavy for Florida. I trust that defense just a little bit more than I trust Ole Miss's offense. Let's go into some of the later slates. You mentioned the 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific games that were your biggest needs. Anything around that 3:30, 12:30 slate?
Yeah, one game that really jumped out where we took some really big bets this morning was Texas Tech. They laid 5 against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's going to be a big need for us. Sharp money came in on Pitt at plus 8.5. That's at Louisville. We're going to need Louisville in the game. Same thing with South Florida. They laid a big number. The Sharps laid 17. They laid 17.5. We'll need Tulsa in the game. The Colorado-Kansas game is obviously a game you have to mention. It's really split for us. There's really no need one way or the other. This has been a classic game. They lay 2.5. They take 3 with Kansas. So that's been really back and forth. And then the BYU-Arizona State game is very interesting because we've taken good BYU money, and I think it's because that number is 3.5. And it hasn't really been sharp money for us. It's been more public money. But we've taken some fair-sized bets on BYU. So we'll need Arizona State, who's probably the most underrated team in the country, to do what they need to do for us today and cover. That will be a good result if that happens.
Let's talk about a couple of other late games around the 3:30 slate. One that was kind of intriguing to me, Wisconsin, Nebraska. Was that sharp money that moved that down, or you guys just seeing all Wisconsin money?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of Wisconsin money. Nebraska's such a funny team. It feels like every week. I mean, I know we were on them. I think that was last week. And I don't know, it's just a hard team to figure out. Wisconsin obviously played good enough to win against Oregon, so I think bettors still have that in their mind. But that is a game that really isn't in our top 10 or 15 needs as far as the Saturday slate goes.
All right, guys, if you have a question for Art regarding bookmaking at the Westgate SuperBook or a specific game you want to know some splits or sharp action on, drop it in the chat. Eric Wiggins wants to know, what do you think about Texas State versus Georgia State? This is totally an Art play. I could not name either quarterback.
No, yeah, no. And, it's funny. We've talked about this. I know Teddy and I had this conversation once. Do you need to know the players to book the games or even bet the games? The answer is no on both sides. You don't. You need to know how to read markets and see trends and all that type of stuff. So it's not something where you're like, oh, I need to, know the quarterback or know the starting running backs for these teams. There's not much on that game. I mean, I want to say there's more Texas State money than Georgia State. And I know a lot of times these low-level games, I remember a couple of weeks ago, Kennesaw State was our biggest need. It just happens sometimes, but this isn't one of those that really jumps out and is going to be a make-or-break game for us as far as this goes.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I had a sizable wager on Kennesaw State that day, but Art said it was their biggest need. Batone 24, I need some info on the IU Ohio State total from Art and Kelly. Shout out the Bay Area.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a game, and the total hasn't really seen much, but I'm shocked how badly we'll need Ohio State. I understand it's a big number, but Indiana's played nobody, and obviously they're really stepping up in class today. And I get taking 13 and 12 and all these big numbers, but it just feels like to me Ohio State's going to overwhelm them. That's just me. I think even first half -6.5 is kind of a good look, but when you need one of the best teams in the country, granted they have to cover a margin, that's sometimes we look at that's a good position for us to be in.
All right, guys, give us a like. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are here for you every single Saturday, bright and early at least. Art's out there bright and early. T Loading wants to know, any thoughts on Boston College +2.5? Art, this is a game that I gave an initial look to, but there's been kind of some issues, if you will, in the locker room there with BC. Obviously, what's going on with Castellanos is not a good thing, but it's been seeming like everybody I know likes BC today +2.5.
Yeah, this is another one where when we always find, and I understand there are some people who disagree, but college football doesn't really have key numbers. It's not like the NFL with 3 and 7. But a lot of times with these college football games, when the game is around 3 or the game's around 7, you see them just ping pong the 6.5, 7, 2.5, 3 with a game like that. So that's been a similar thing. I'd say BC's the preferred side. I'm with you on that, but they do have a lot of issues. But that's a game that's seen really good split action because it's in that field goal range.
All right, guys. B Daddy wants to know, thoughts on Fresno State versus Colorado State. Who is public and sharps on?
I would say the public's on Colorado State. The sharps are on Fresno State. Colorado State hasn't lost a game in the Mountain West. They're one of those teams who's kind of sneaking under the radar in that conference. Obviously, we all want UNLV to go on and win out and play Boise State, but Colorado State has to lose, and this is the spot that obviously it could happen. Fresno's had a very down year. This is their Super Bowl.
Ooh, their Super Bowl. That's right. I was on Air Force a couple weeks ago and forgot to sprinkle on the money line. Kind of do like Fresno State in this one, Art. All right, we've got a few more minutes with Art. Again, guys, here for you, so drop your questions in the chat. Florida Ole Miss total. Douglas Garrett wants to know, we mentioned earlier to start the show that, early in the week, -10, Ole Miss bet Florida all the way back up. We haven't talked about this total at all. I really like this Florida defense. Your thoughts on maybe an under look? Is Florida correlated to the under here?
Yeah, and I mean, Ole Miss's defense is really good too. I know everyone always talks about how great their offense is and Jackson Dart, and they put up all these video game numbers, but their defense is very underrated. So I think the look in the game is the under. I don't think there's any question about that.
All right. I might take a mental note of that. If you guys didn't know, that's what I do this entire show. I'm also here for myself. I take all the notes for late breaking information. All right, Art, before I let you go, let's run down through some of your other needs, biggest needs for the rest of today's slate.
Yeah, let's just look at a couple of games. Iowa, Maryland is a game we did not mention. There's a lot of quarterback issues on both sides. Obviously, Iowa's playing like a third-string quarterback. Maryland looks to be playing a backup as well. Took a lot of Maryland money early in the week. Sharp, that's gone from 6.5 to 4. Rutgers is a game we mentioned. Rutgers was a 1-point underdog. Now they're a 2.5-point favorite, so that's a big need there. A&M Auburn. This is a game where the public is going to be all over A&M. Sharps are going to be all over Auburn. So we'll need probably A&M in the game. That's another one. And then Washington State, a game that is going to get no pub. But we're going to need Oregon State in that game.
Oregon State. Okay. Maybe worth a little bit of looks here on the Beavs. All right, Art DiCesare at ArtDice21 on X. You can catch him every single week here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel with me on Last Call. And, of course, on WagerTalk today with Teddy and the Prez. Don't worry, Art. I got a little birdie that told me that I might have to be, relieving Teddy a few days a week from the depths of hell that is doing a show with Prez. So I might see you other days other than Saturday once football season's over. We'll talk some college hoops. We'll get into it. Always appreciate your insight and your time. Guys, make sure you give Art a follow on social. He does a very great job over there. I mean, much better than John Murray would ever do, who just completely abandoned us last Sunday. Let's bring in VR. You guys know him, Yanni the Greek, at Greek_gambler on all your social channels. So give him a follow. You guys just see him give you the thumbs up. That means give us a like. We need some likes churning here, guys. I'd like to see over 100 likes before the end of his segment because he is about to drop some serious gold.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got a ton, Kel. In fact, I just bet a rugby play that I just sent it to Slack and asked Missy if she could send it out to my subscribers. Scotland, -4 at -110 or better versus Australia. Scotland -4. That's a rugby play. I got a ton of college basketball, but we'll get into that later in the season. So let's stick mostly with college football unless anyone else has any questions. I'm going to give the team totals first, like I usually do, because those tend to be very sharp. First, UMass under 7, all the way up to -150. So they are betting heavy that UMass does not score a touchdown against Georgia in that entire 60 minutes. That's the bet, and they think it's better than 60% probability that that will happen. Also, team totals. This one's important. North Carolina under 27.5. Boston College under 24.5, both good up to -130. Why? Because that game total got steamed so heavily. If you look at the line, you'll see how heavily the game total got steamed. So what do? They look elsewhere. They looked at the derivatives like most good traders would do in other markets. That's why they took those two team totals under. Now, real quickly, let's go through some of these sides and totals that I confirmed as legit. Start off with Georgia Southern Coastal Carolina, top of the card, over 57. Drop down to Miami, Florida. That's a first half bet on the over, 34.5 first half. Go down to Virginia Tech -2.5, Virginia Tech -3. Kansas, game 140, +2.5 for the full game, +1.5 in the first game. So Kansas got hit twice, just like Virginia Tech. Go down to ODU, another game that got hit twice. Old Dominion at minus, all the way up to -2, and on the money line against Marshall. Go down to Wisconsin, game 153. Wisconsin on the money line and plus whatever points were available there. Same happened with Maryland against Iowa. They took Maryland +4. They took Maryland on the money line. They took Maryland +2.5 first half, and they also went under 43. So they expect a low-scoring game. No surprise, they bet the underdog. They bet them plus the points. They bet them in the first half. They took them on the money line as well. When they really like a side, that's how they hit it because the line moves too significantly. So the only way to get more money down is to bet the other options. And that's what we saw with that game. Move down to Air Force +3.5. Troy +11.5. Give you this total. Cincinnati, Kansas State over 53. And finally, came in late, Vandy +8 against LSU. And a few other Steam plays that came in today with guys I trade with. They gave me USF. Their guys betted at 17. They took the 8 on Pittsburgh. That's pretty much what sticks out so far.
All right, VR. That was wonderful. I'm happy to hear that they're on Vanderbilt with me. I think Vanderbilt can win that game. All right, Johnny would say, see all clients in the Steam room tomorrow. Thank you, Johnny, for the reminder to plug the Steam room. Hit that like, boys and girls. Johnny.
And if you sign up now, I think he's giving you access, even if you just buy whatever today, because we're going to go over a lot tomorrow. Wong teasers will be in effect like we do a couple minutes before the kickoffs over there, and we go through each and every game. But you touched, I wanted to bring this up because Art talked about it earlier, and I pull up the back end when I jump on to the biggest book that I have access to. He has over 300 players, 99 point whatever percent are square. The bot accounts are labeled so I could see who's betting what. And I can tell you this, Kel, the money on Mississippi over Florida is probably 10-1 in favor of Mississippi. Like, not just ticket count. Ticket count, forget about it. It's not even.
Well, that makes me happy.
Question. But
I mean, listen, I think I'm on an island there with liking Florida today. I mean, it's not a fun place to be. I get that, but also sometimes it's kind of nice to be the one versus the world. But were you guys the sharp group that came back on any of that Florida money at 13.5 by any chance?
No, not yet. I'm thinking of betting it, Kel. I like it. I haven't gotten any orders for that. The other thing that scares me a little bit that I saw jump out, on top of that, where was that? Yeah, Kansas. When you see the sharps and the public on the same side, that always scares me. And a ton of public accounts are taking the points on Kansas and taking the money line. Like instead of 2.5.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Listen, I kind of get it. KU's surging at the right time. BYU off a heartbreaker, or not BYU, excuse me. They just beat BYU in Provo. Colorado, was a very public team. Now everybody's cheering for their downfall. So that one kind of makes a little bit of sense for me. All right, Ryan Bretcher wants to know, VR, can you tell us more about that Colorado KU game?
Yeah, that's what I'm surprised with, that Ryan, that they're not just taking the points, that the square accounts are taking them on the money line. And they're teasing a lot. Now, again, we don't tease college football. At least they're teasing a number through the key 3 and 7s, but they're just not key in college football. That's why it doesn't matter. But when I see that the recreational bettors don't think they need the points, so they're taking it on the money line, and that same bettor is also tying them into a teaser because they just want more action on it, as if this one's a lock. So now I'm going to key this on everything. It's in their money line parlays. It's on their straight bet. It's on their teasers. They feel that confident about this Colorado team about this Kansas team beating Colorado. That always worries me. That worries me the most when I see that. And another game that Art touched on, because I always jump on early to make sure I listen to what he says, great information, is that Indiana against Ohio State. They are taking the 10.5, Kelly. They are teasing it up to 17.5. Why would you tease college football anyway? But then again, why would you even do a 7-point teaser? But they think at 17.5 that it's a safe bet, because I'm seeing, again, the only reason I even mention is because it sticks out so much that I'm seeing so many of those Indiana teasers. So yeah, a lot of Indiana money for sure also against Ohio State.
All right, before we get to Paco Healy, if you guys get us to 100 likes this morning, I'm going to ask VR to finish off with some of that sharp college basketball that I know you guys are itching to get. Paco Healy wants to know, Kelly, should I fade the world and take Army? Don't ask me, Paco. This is a Notre Dame team that I don't think is as good as advertised. But boy, does this line kind of have a story to tell. And that is that they think that Notre Dame is probably as good. This is a triple option that I think has the ability to be stopped defensively if you've seen it enough times. I'm just not sure Notre Dame's the team to do it. VR, what are you seeing in regards to this game?
That's what I'm looking at right now, because believe it or not, I was surprised to just look in that back end and see that it is pretty split between these two teams, even though we have like a significant line move. And that's usually not the case. You got a 17 down to 14. I'll tell you what, to me, it's favored or pass. I think any value's been extracted on the underdog Army. It may sound square taking the Dame side, but at that number, for me, it's Dame or pass. It's not a side that I bet, but it's definitely Notre Dame or pass. At 14, yeah, I think 17 was the right number. But at 14, it's Dame or nothing at all.
And that's fair. JoJo Collins wants to know about Louisville -7 here. You mentioned you guys played Pitt +8.
Yeah. I didn't give that to my subscribers because I didn't have a strong opinion on that myself. And I don't like, there's enough volume that I don't have to do that. So don't let that scare you, especially, it's sitting at a key number. They didn't keep betting it once it hit that key number. Again, you want to know where the sharp's on. You don't want to go against them much because they're going to hit at 55% long term. So you don't want to be on the flip side of that, but you don't want to necessarily just not bet a side just because they're on the other side. Because again, you don't know whether there's some middle involved, whether they just have a lot of risk. So don't let that push you. But yeah, I can confirm that Pittsburgh did get money. A lot of public money I'm seeing on Pittsburgh as well. I don't like that side. I'll be honest. The more I dug into that game, the more now I'm seeing why I liked Louisville. So I'm not going to release that to subscribers. Just telling you that now. It's not a play I liked earlier. Gun the head. I'm laying the 7 with Louisville.
All right. Sounds good to me. Karen Heath wants to know, will Penn State cover the 12 at Minnesota? I'm waiting to hear from our producers whether we got our 100 likes or not so that you can finish us up with some college basketball.
What?
Oh, sounds like we did not. Wow.
No college basketball, dude. I'll give it else.
All right. Very, very simple answer right there. We'll
Take
we'll
Penn
get
State
this,
and over. Penn State and over. Penn State and over.
Okay. Penn State and over. All right, VR, give yourself a little self-promotion. I will see you tomorrow on the NFL edition of Last Call. And
I can't wait for that. Right now, number one in college football, last 30 days, last 7 days, number one college football profit since 2020. I got a really strong card up there. Like I said, being much more selective as we head into the new year. And Steam Room's wide open on Sunday. We have a lot of fun in there. We go over each and every NFL game. And any questions you have, I'm there to answer. Plus, you get all the bonus stuff, the soccer that comes in, the tennis that comes in, the player prop that comes in, the team totals that come in that I can't release to subscribers. So head on over to WagerTalk.com. Jump on board. We're going to have some fun the next few days. And next week's Thanksgiving weekend. Are you crazy? It's the best time to be betting, man. People are off for 4 days. There's more value over those 4 days, Kel, for college football than any time other than the bowl games, because there is such an influx of recreational bettors that are just off from work. There's TV games. They want to get action down. So
I get it. I totally get it. All right. Thank you, VR. Make sure you guys are giving VR a follow at Greek_Gambler7 on TikTok, doing lots of content over there at Greek_Gambler on Instagram and Twitter. Let's bring in Ralph Michaels. I promised I'd have him out of here by 11:30 so he could go watch his Buckeyes. Ralph has been crushing the last 30 days in college football, so he has earned a coveted seat here on Last Call. We try to bring you the best of the best. But Ralph, we kind of talked about this before the show. I normally say, let's open it up to college football questions. But one of the things that we made a change with this year on the NFL edition and college football edition of Bet On It was we shortened down TNA where you just give us a play. So I would love to see if you have any TNA going into this Saturday slate before we take some questions from the audience.
Kel, let's talk about 4 situations that are all late season in college football. First, we're going to break down the Ohio State-Indiana game. Teams with 7 or more wins that are undefeated, like Indiana, that are an away dog of 3 or more versus an opponent off a loss. So again, if you have 7 wins and higher, you're going to be a ranked team. You're getting 3 points or more on the road. Those teams are only 10-24, 29.4%. So that says to fade Indiana. As we know, that's what the Westgate needs. But one thing I did look at as well, talking about that Ohio State game, with the big noon kickoff, Ohio State, Penn State in-state college would have absolutely been a whiteout. Ohio State, Indiana would have been a 3:30 or night game. But with Fox doing the big noon kickoff, their big games have been at 12 noon. When I went to the database, ranked home teams before 3 o'clock Eastern are 55% against the spread, but night teams, they're 48% against the spread. Night teams are 55% at home. So there is a significant disadvantage being that big home favorite with a noon start, where the players are a little more lethargic and the crowd is. Situation number 2.
Real quick, Ralph, I want to go back to that because that is the biggest game today. You did grow up a Buckeyes fan. Do you have a wager on that game? Like I told everybody, because it's a noon kickoff, I'm going to take the show right up until basically kickoff. I don't know. I feel like it's not as exciting as if it was a night game in the shoe.
Oh, no question. But again, that's TV marketing. That's the Fox's new contract. They spent billions of dollars. They're allowed to make that call. I did not, Kelly. When it got to 10, I was about to pull the trigger, and I have not. Again, to put it in perspective, we all know they played the weakest Big Ten schedule. Let me quantify that. Number 62 in the country is their schedule. There's only 2 teams that have played a worse schedule out of the Power 5 conference. The worst is NC State. They've played the number 70th toughest schedule. They've played nobody. So again, Indiana statistically, Ohio State and Indiana are number 2 and 3 in yards per play diff. The difference is Ohio State, the number 9 schedule, Indiana, the number 62.
Very good point. Yeah, I don't know. Now that Art said Ohio State, I had a bet with my good friend Sam Panayotovich. He goes, I bet you bet this game. I'm like, I don't really need to bet this game, but man, I love to hear some of those biggest needs from the Westgate. Let's go into a couple more systems that you have for this college football Saturday.
Well, a big one, Kelly. How about 5-5 teams? We know at the start of the year, it doesn't matter if you're Akron or FIU or New Mexico State. Your goal is still to get to 6 wins and get to a bowl. So teams that are 5-5 that are off a loss, but they covered that loss. So you're sitting at 500. You have to get one more win to get bowl eligible. You played well last time covering because you were a dog and you covered that game. Those teams are 65% against the spread. That applies to Michigan, Arkansas, Boston College, and Virginia. But if those 5-5 teams are a home favorite of -4 and higher, Kelly, they have hit 78% against the spread. That applies to Michigan and Arkansas today. System number 3. I just talked about 5-5 teams that are trying to play for a bowl. How about a team that is off a loss and now has 7 losses? You are now bowl ineligible. So what happens? We've seen a lot of coaches get fired. Most programs will not fire their coach until they get a 7th loss. You don't want to have a coach ever say, hey, I had this team turned around. I could have gotten us to a bowl. So teams off a loss that now have 7 losses and they're a home dog of 8 or higher, those teams are 38.2% against the spread. That says to fade Ball State today against BG. Ball State, one of those teams with a coaching change as well. And the last one, Kel, for our TNA today, late season home favorites off a bye. So when I look at game 9 and later, the home favorite of 6 or more is off a bye, facing an opponent that is not off a bye. Since 2008, those rested late season home favorites, 88-50, 64% against the spread. That applies to Michigan, TCU, and Joe's Miami Hurricanes.
Oh, boy. Well, I did tail Marco D'Angelo on Northwestern, even though now you gave 2 systems against his sandwich play. We won't tell him that. I'm sure he's still resting this morning and would not catch you saying that. All right, at CalSportsLV on Twitter. I promised Ralph he'd be out of here by 11:30 so he could go watch the Ohio State game, but I'm going to take a couple of questions from the chat. Rapid fire. Our producer will put them on the screen for me. Give us some likes, guys, and we'll get Ralph to answer things. Ralph, Rob Christensen wants to know thoughts on SMU, Virginia. This was an interesting one because on my long list, I did have Virginia plus the points and thought, okay, here's an SMU team that has been an absolute force to reckon with in the ACC this year. But I like this Virginia team. I think they're scrappy. They play solid defense. And offensively, if they don't beat themselves, do you think they can keep it close?
You know, I've been impressed with SMU, and I've been on them a few times, Kel. But what concerns me is their defense. We've seen them. They went to Duke. They won by 1 point. They only had a 76-yard edge. They hosted Pittsburgh. They only had a 14-yard edge as a sizable favorite. And against Boston College, they allowed 417 yards, and they only had a 21-yard edge. There's no way I am going to take a team laying double digits on the road that has allowed 430 yards per game the last 2 against offenses called Pittsburgh and Boston College that aren't known for their prowess.
Touche. All right, guys, make sure you're giving Ralph a thumbs up here. answering all your college football questions. And then, of course, we're going to finish up the show with Adam Trigger. So if you have a college basketball question, drop it in the chat. Clutch Sports Apparel, Iowa, Maryland game. Ralph, I have Maryland plus 6.5 in pocket. As VR likes to say, I did my job. However, now this one's coming back up. Maryland's back up to a 5-point underdog. Your thoughts on this matchup?
Well, Kelly, the question is Iowa State. That question may be Iowa. They may have a third-string quarterback here without Sullivan or McNamara. I threw the game out, so I did not look at the injury report. But again, I have no interest in being on the Hawkeyes. Yeah, their offenses look good, but if they are down to their third stringer going on the road, remember, this team has looked very exciting and people are talking about the offense, but their only road games are Minnesota, where they were +2 turnovers. That's how they won by 17. At Michigan State, where they only put up 283 yards and lost by 12. And at UCLA, where they only put up 265 yards and lost by 3. So only one way I can go, and that's the Terps.
All right, go Terps. Last question for Ralph. Make sure you guys are giving him some love in the like section. You know, Johnny's going to keep hammering that home until you guys give us enough. A&M at Auburn line looks fishy, Mark says. We kind of touched on this one with Art to start the show. He said they were going to need A&M. That Auburn has been played not only by sharp groups, but by recreational bettors as well. Look, Auburn reminds me a lot of the Kansas Jayhawks, Ralph. Lost in a lot of like really wonky games where they kind of beat themselves late down the stretch. Super talented. Talk to me about Hugh Freeze's team here at home.
What's the definition of wonky, Kelly? Anyway, I agree with you. You look at Auburn's stat profile, and that's why so many sharps on Auburn. This year, despite their record and their, what do they have now, 6 losses, they are actually number 10 in yards per play diff. They are plus 2.04 yards per play. They've been dynamic. Why have they played so poorly? It's simple. They're minus 11 turnovers. California, minus 5 turnovers and loss. Arkansas, minus 3 turnovers and loss. Oklahoma, minus 1 turnover and loss. Georgia, they were even. They played well. Missouri, they lose by 4. They played well. They were plus 1 turnover. Kentucky, they played better. So to me, the way Auburn has not turned the ball over recently, they've gotten some pressure on their defensive end. I would be on Auburn, but again, when a team is this turnover happy, I cannot back them in this situation. But clearly a lean for the Tigers for me.
I'm with you. No more teams that just turn the ball over excessively. Nebraska, except I bet on them again this week. Ralph, go Bucks. I hope you have a great time watching the game and get the result you want as a fan, since you did not bet it. Let's bring in Adam Trigger, guys, to answer all your college basketball questions. Adam, I'm just basically going to let you take some questions from the chat. Hand up. I have not looked at the college basketball slate for today. I was going to kind of peruse around while I was sitting on the couch before I go pick up Ariel Epstein from the airport. And look, it's still college football season for me, but you are knee deep in college basketball off a 2-0 day yesterday. So Bill Sandoval wants to know, who's Bill Sandoval? I don't know, but B Daddy wants to know thoughts on Purdue minus 19.5 and Yale minus 10.5. Let's talk about both of those games.
Yeah, so I have let's do this quick, Kel. I'm going to call it quick audible because this game starts in 20 minutes. So let me talk about a game that I want everyone to bet, and then I'll circle back because I do have opinions on Purdue and Yale. But this is like Sounds a timing good. Thing. Okay, so I want to talk about UMBC quick because I wanted to give the viewers a play that I actually bet. So it's one of my client plays for today. I have a few of them. They're up on my page. But reason I want to bet UMBC here, I took the money line, minus 120. They're at home against Boston University today. And quick shout out to our buddy Joey Cheese, who's been absolutely on fire. He hit me up last week and said, Trig, talk to me about UMBC St. Peter's. I kind of like St. Peter's. And what I told him was, well, St. Peter's is going to slow down UMBC here to a crawl, and that's how they're going to try to win the game. And that's exactly what they did. And St. Peter's won that game in this building a week ago today. Now, this is a very similar opponent for UMBC, but I think having the experience of having just played St. Peter's, making the adjustments at halftime, and coming out in the second half and figuring out how to speed St. Peter's up, which they did. They still lost the game, but they got the second half in the 40s. And I think that's really going to help them against Boston U, who's a similar defensive team, wants to play slow. But the difference here, Kelly, is if Boston U is sped up to the pace that Jim Ferry and UMBC want to play, I don't think there's any way they can hang in this game. BU's 1-4 on the season, and if you look at the opponents that they played, the Northeastern, the teams that they've lost to, Northeastern, San Diego, UCLA blew them out, all teams that were able to sort of get them out of sorts, the pace they wanted to play. And even last time out, they got their slow game against Wagner, still found a way to lose. They have a lot of guys back, but they're really missing Anthony Morales. So I bet UMBC on the money line, minus 120. It's moved a little bit, but that is a client play for me. I really like the Retrievers. Kel, a battle of the pups here. Terriers versus the Retrievers in Baltimore today. I played UMBC. All right, I'll get to Bill's plays, though. Yale Fairfield. So Yale's been a little bit of a thorn in my side this year. Reason being, I think that they're nowhere near what they were last season, yet they just continue to overachieve against the number. I cashed going against them early in the season, but now twice took probably my worst beat of the college basketball season last Saturday when Yale hit a buzzer beater 3 to backdoor the spread. And then I forget who they were playing, but they recently covered again and just absolutely trashed someone earlier this week in a game that was never close. Point being, I think Yale is quite inflated based on that. They're a couple of good results. They have a cover in there against Purdue. And then just the fact that, like, I just don't think an Ivy League team can lose 2 guys to the Big Ten and arguably their best senior leader and then overachieve the next year. So Danny Wolf now at Michigan, Matt Noling now at USC. August Mahoney was like a 4-year starter, kind of like heart and soul of that team last year. He graduates. This is a Yale team that went to the round of 32 after beating Auburn in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So for me, I just can't see how Yale then comes out and overachieves the next year. They've done it to this point. I think that's going to run out at some point. So I would have loved a few more points here in this one. And I'm not super high on Fairfield, but I could only bet against Yale at this point. Cal, what was this other game?
The other game, that's right, Purdue, minus 10.5. Purdue off a nice win. I did get to catch part of that game. Your thoughts on the Boilermakers and this matchup for today?
Yeah, so I got to go through my little database here and see. I just want to see what I made the number for that one. But this is like the fun of, we're kind of right in. I'll comment real quick. This feels like conference tournament week. We've got games morning till night, games during the days, all these neutral floor games, and it's hard to keep track of all of them. So I just want to see what I made that number. Hold on a second. Is there another one in the chat by any chance?
Yeah,
I want to get my number here on. Yeah, go ahead. I just want to look up what I made for you.
If you guys have a question for Trig, let me know. Paco Healy, can Cal Poly hang tonight with St. Mary's?
Yeah, so I hear Joe in the background yelling because we've talked about Cal Poly a bunch. So they are a team that the market totally is just was out on. Like, they made a lot of changes for the better. I believe they got a bunch of guys from D2 that have been favorable. So this is a huge number. I unfortunately have kind of missed I feel like I missed my shot with this team. I think Joe Ranieri in the back there liked them a lot. I believe they were playing maybe like Pacific, or I think it might have been Pacific. And like the market has smashed every Cal Poly line so far this year because everyone's kind of in on it, if you will. So I do think this is too many points. It's the way I would play it, but I'm worried about being late to the party, Cal. We always kind of talk about that, where they've cashed a couple times. I don't want to be like jumping on them now, having missed a couple of chances to win with them, and then have them get smashed by a St. Mary's team that's just so tricky to play against. It almost doesn't matter how good a team is. St. Mary's, with their style, can really frustrate teams, and this wouldn't be the spot where I want to get involved personally with Cal Poly. But if you've kind of been on them so far, I'm not going to put you off sort of going back to the well. Okay, Purdue, I found the game. Okay, so Purdue hosts Marshall here. So Purdue is not a team I really was dying to back like in the early going. I did like them in that Alabama game though, because I thought the line just got really out of hand. That was a huge move toward Bama in a true home game for Purdue, which I felt like there was value on Purdue at like whatever it was 4. Didn't play it. Of course, Purdue turns around, goes on the road, plays a true game, a true road game of their own, and gets smashed by Marquette. I think this one probably seems right about where I would put it. I believe we're at like 19.5. Purdue's still like, I'll throw one thing out about Purdue. They're still really pretty good. Like, even though Edey's not there, they still have great 3-point shooters, and they're going to play the same way they wanted to play with Zach Edey. The problem is they don't have Zach Edey to bail them out, meaning just get the ball to him, let him get fouled, let him just make a really tough shot. That's what they lack a little bit this year, as opposed to last year's team that went to the national championship game. So not a strong opinion there for me, but I guess I wouldn't want to fade Purdue coming off of that blowout loss to Marquette.
All right, Elm NSR1T. I don't know what the hell that stands for. Anything on UConn today from the YouTube channel? Shout out to the YouTube channel. Shout out to all of you that are watching on Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter. Please smash that like button because we are here for you each and every Saturday, breaking down college football, looks behind the counter, and now adding college basketball into the mix.
You guys are keeping me on my toes. I'm going to give you 2 opinions. I think you're asking me about UConn football, who plays today up here in Syracuse, New York, who I think gets smashed and run out of the dome. I don't like this. UConn's been very, very fortunate football-wise. Like, I was on them. I think it was either their last game against UAB. Kelly, I had zero business winning this game. They covered 7, and they were down like 15 in the second half. And they forced like multiple turnovers and then like kind of broke off a late touchdown to win. I think they get run out of the dome today. I know there's a huge crowd, probably maybe 3,000 tickets short of a sellout here. Last I checked, and that was without like the walk-up sales that'll probably occur over the next couple hours. So I think UConn gets blown out. I didn't play it because the number's right where I would make the football game. Like I think I made Syracuse -9.5. It's 10. I don't know. Syracuse comes back from the West Coast, just had a big win out at Cal. So I don't know if I want to lay 10 with them, but I don't really love this UConn football team right now. Like I've played them a few times, but now going on the road as a 10-point dog, not where I want to play the football team. If you're talking about basketball, they don't play until Monday, but they are out in the Maui Invitational. And I will tell you, I will look for a spot to bet against UConn in that tournament. Now, it's probably not going to be on Monday because they play Memphis, another team that I really want to fade at this point. Kel, I think Memphis basketball has covered every spread so far this year, every single one. I actually think UConn may have as well. So those are 2 teams. Unfortunately, they're playing against each other because I think the market is as high as could possibly be right now on UConn and on Memphis. I'm just double checking. I don't know if so UConn actually, this is crazy. They won their last game by 35, and I think they actually may have not covered against East Texas A&M. Memphis overturned a second half deficit to hand me a loss the other night with San Francisco. So Maui Invitational is going to be 3 games in 3 days. I will be looking to bet against both of those teams. I'm not sure if I'll have any action in that particular game, UConn-Memphis, to open things off on Monday, because I want to bet against both those teams. But the beauty of some of these MTEs, Cal, is we'll get our chance, right? Like 3 games in 3 days. If you want to fade a team, you're probably going to be able to find a spot to do so.
All right, Adam Trigger, give yourself a little self-promotion. Let everybody know where they can get your college basketball package at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, so right there, wt.buzz/AT. I've got college basketball special up, a college football NFL special. I've won 6 of the last 7 weeks in college football. I've on a 4-1 run in NFL. I've got a 5%er in NFL tomorrow. College hoop, I've played 3 games already today. Gave you one of them with UMBC. The Retrievers starts in about 14 minutes. 2 other ones, and I may add more. So a great day to take advantage of one-day pass, which is always available at WagerTalk, and a great value. You'll get my college football play on that as well, which goes in 14 minutes. So, 4 plays so far for me on the day. I may add others. And yeah, as always, right here at WagerTalk.wt.buzz/AT.
Awesome stuff. Adam Trigger at Adam Trigger WT on your social channels. We'll see if we can't get him back here to talk some more college basketball over the next few weeks, but he has to run hot. That is the rule. I only want the best guys here on Last Call. Good luck to him. Good luck to Ralph, VR, Art, everybody out there watching from home. Good luck to you too. Good luck to me, because I'm going to need it. Sounds like with some of the needs from the Westgate, some of the sharp action and some of the plays that I'm a little head-to-head on, and especially that sandwich game that Ralph so kindly came in and gave Marco and I just the middle finger with two situations to say not to take Northwestern. Make sure you guys give everybody on here a follow. They do a very hard job coming on, giving you guys free content on Wager Talks YouTube channel and all the social media, subsequent social media channels as well. You guys have a wonderful Saturday. We'll see you tomorrow.